So my name is Kristen Papalizio. I'm studying to be a special education teacher. My brother has autism and he inspired me to want to help other children on the spectrum.
I was first diagnosed, I think I had to be about 5. She was about 3. And she started doing therapy, and they came a lot. Like, they were always there, and she was always, working on. She worked so hard. I don't think there's anyone that's, worked harder than her.
Once he was diagnosed, we started realizing all the little signs. For example, in the grocery store, he would never walk into a grocery store. He wouldn't walk up the step on a curb. He was too scared of the height. In the grocery store itself, it was too loud for him, the lights bothered him, and we just never knew why he hated it so much.
Remember when people came to help Belle, I basically had to stay in my room. So a lot of the times the therapist would let me sit on the steps and watch the therapy go on. I didn't really understand, but I guess as a kid I just kind of knew it was something that was important.
It continued on with a lot of different things. It continued with transitioning from one place to another. So if we had to go out to church or wherever we were going, he had a huge issue leaving and then coming back home. He would throw fits in the cars for hours, just screaming and yelling and crying. And it was really hard in the beginning. He got a lot better now with transition. And he still has some quirky things about him. Like, for example, when I moved into my first apartment, I couldn't get him to go up the steps. He had a huge tantrum, started screaming and crying. He was running around the complex. Now he's 10 years old when this was happening. And I couldn't even get him in the car, and I couldn't figure out what the problem was. And once he calmed down, I talked to him about it, and he was like, "The stairs, it's too high, I'm gonna fall." So he just always has that quirk about him that he can't go up steps, or he has an issue with it.
Even as a kid, it was something I understood and accepted. I mean, it was rough. I was in my room alone a lot. I didn't get a lot of attention from my mom, as any regular kid in a normal situation would get, because a lot of her attention went to Belle. But it was always something I understood.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects people's personality. It affects their the way that they see the world in general. So, for example, in a classroom, if the person, 2 rows over from you is tapping their pencil, the person a row ahead of you is tapping their foot, someone else is listening to music in the back of the classroom through their headphones, that child will hear every single thing times 5. So if you hear that tapping pencil and it's annoying, they literally can't focus past that tapping pencil. And that happens with lights, anything. They're just overly stimulated by the world around them. And that's what causes their meltdowns and the difficulties that they face in the world in general.
For example, imagine you're trying to tell your mom I need to go to the bathroom, or I need a drink, or I'm hungry. Imagine having that in your head and not being able to say it. Imagine having anything in your head and not being able to voice it out loud. A lot of people can't do that. And this was a situation she was put in almost.
So Robert is very caring and he loves to make friends. He loves animals. He loves people in general, just anyone. But he specifically can be a little bit rough with things. He doesn't really realize how to act towards things. So, for example, my cats, he just picks them up and squeezes them and carries them around, and he'll pick them up by their fur basically and just carry them. And I'm like, no, we have to be gentle, we have to be careful with them. He's like, oh, we just pet them, we don't push them down, we don't pull them, we don't throw them out windows, and he goes through all the things we can't do. So he just needs, people in general just need to understand that they don't really know what they're doing, and you can't take it so seriously. And you just have to be knowledgeable of what autism is in general.
It's like having blue eyes, or being born with dark hair or blonde hair. It's the same thing. She's just a person. She's a person who has autism, who's autistic. And I don't think that doesn't make her any different. Yeah, she thinks differently and she might function a little differently, but it doesn't change who she is as a person. She's still a great person. She's probably like the most honest, kindest, smartest person I will ever encounter in my life.
So there's a lot of tools that could be incorporated in even a neurotypical classroom. So children become aware of these children who are in their classroom with disabilities, whether it's autism, ADD, or any other type of disability. There's a book that I found, it's called My Friend with Autism, and it explains a lot of what I have explained already. One example is it says, "My friend's ears work really well. He can hear sounds I may not even hear. He is almost always the first one to hear an airplane or a train coming. This is why he sometimes covers his ears, even when things don't seem loud to me. My friend's eyes work really well. He sees little things that I might not even notice. His eyes work so well that bright lights or a sunny day will often hurt his eyes."
In her classes, she had a lot of boys, generally. And I remember she always had them wrapped. Like, they would do anything for her. Like, she would drop a pencil, they'd pick it up for her. She wouldn't even go pick it up, they'd just pick it up for her. She had them wrapped, but they loved her, and she loved them. She had her own bodyguard, basically, you know, it was great, and they loved her so much. I remember one kid, his name was Henry, he would, whenever she would get upset, he'd hold her hand all the time. She still remembers that to this day, and she talks about it. It's great. It's nice that, you know, she had him and, you know, he held her hand when she was upset, and like as her sister, that was such a great thing.
There's a lot of different things that you can do specifically for him. There's some times where he needs to just be taken away from everything and just put in his room alone and like sit down and talk to him. And if you tell him, "All right, Robert, you need to calm down," he'll go, "Okay," and start breathing really heavily to try to calm himself down. And then he'll go 1, 2, 3, and he'll like squeeze his hands together. That helps him calm down.
Me, like if she was ever really anxious, I would have her hug me, and I keep telling her to hug me tighter and tighter. So that helped a lot. Also repetition. Repetition helps a lot, like just saying it over and over so that it'll finally like get through.
He really just needs to be separated from the situation and taken to the side. Also, we try to avoid certain things with him, like if he has a routine of going a certain way or do a certain thing, we kind of just stick to the routine because it's easier than fighting with him about it, and there's no point of him being so stressed out if it can be avoided.
Oh, there's so many funny stories. I remember once we were at a softball game, and she was getting a little, like, you know, anxious and a little, like, nervous because, you know, there was a lot of people. It was a little too much for her, a little overwhelming. So we were sitting there and they're like announcing the players that are coming up, you know, the different players. And then so the military's behind us, just comes into the story. And they're announcing a player and they announce this one player and she just stands up, she points and she goes, "That's my boyfriend!" It was great, the whole military, everyone, they were rolling. It was great because we just got to see them, like, they were all serious and they just all broke and were laughing hysterically.
Emotions he doesn't really know too well. So my mom got stung on the neck by a bee over the summer, and he still brings up the story to this day. Every time we see him, he's like, "What did you and Chris do when Mommy got stung by the bee?" And I was like, "I don't know, Robert, what did we do?" And he goes, "You went ha 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 ha." And like, he'll just joke about stuff that happened in the past and just repeat every single thing that happened, what exactly happened, who did what, how, you know, they expressed their emotion.
These 3 boys walked past. So my sister's kind of like, you know, she's looking at them, all of a sudden she goes, really loudly, she goes, "Hey, it's the Jonas Brothers!" But it was not the Jonas Brothers, but they looked a lot like the Jonas Brothers. And these boys were so embarrassed, so funny.
There's a lot of directions and stuff, so like, whenever you get lost, he'll kind of direct you how to get back home. Even if he's never been in the area, he just knows signs a lot, and he memorizes them, so that's really funny.
That was really honest. I don't know if it's just, I think part of it is just her personality. Maybe it's a mix of just being autistic too, because, you know, a lot of people that have autism will just kind of like say anything, like there's no real filter. I wore my dress for banquet, and it was kind of like blue and sparkly, and, you know, it was a gown, and I wore it, and she told me, she was like, "You look like a princess, Maddie, you look like Cinderella." You know, it's not like just someone going, "Oh, you look really pretty, that's nice," being polite. She actually thought I looked like a princess and looked like Cinderella. she believed I was beautiful, you know? I think that's like the purest, most honest, and I think that's beautiful. It really is. When we went out to public places, we had problems, like, it wasn't even with Bella herself, really. Like, you know, we knew how to deal with that, and she was a person, and we weren't going to let her not go places, you know? She's a person, she should enjoy herself, she should go out and see the world and do things.
In grocery stores or anywhere in general, he'll start talking to people. Oh, hello, my name is Robert. Hello, hello. And they just completely ignore him. Like, I don't see, if a child is saying hi to me, whether they have, you know, you can tell there might be something wrong with them or not, you say hi back. And the fact that people literally ignore him because he just keeps repeating himself, it's pretty pathetic that people could ignore that. And also if he has meltdowns they go to church a lot, my mom and him, so whenever he has meltdowns in church, they just stare at him. Everyone just stares at him and my mom like they're the rudest people ever. Meanwhile, they have no idea what's even happening.
You know, she started like screaming and crying and throwing herself on the floor, and so of course, you know, my mom does what she always does. You know, she went down, she hugged her, and she was like, "It's okay, Belle," you know, keeps explaining over and over again, like, you know, why she couldn't go on, and that it's okay, that we can go on another ride and we can do something else. Because repetition is one of the ways to get through, you know, to her. And I remember, like, there were parents just coming up to us saying, like, you know, educated adults with jobs would come up to us and just be like, "You're a horrible parent, you don't know what you're doing, you know, she's throwing a tantrum, you shouldn't do that, your child's a brat." It was just horrible. And I remember, like, I was little, I went to my mom and I was like, "Why are they so mean to you, Mommy? You know, why are they like that?" I think it's just so sad that, like, a 5-year-old child, like, I was, 5, 6, 7, understood the situation better than an educated adult with a job, you know? Like, there are people out there that are so ignorant just to come up to a mother and be like, "You're not doing your job right." You know, when they don't even understand the situation or who Bella is or that she is autistic, you know?
ABA is a type of therapy that a lot of children with autism do. It's specifically more for children who are just being diagnosed because it teaches them how to play with other children and how exactly to handle being around other people because they don't really know how to express themselves. So whenever Robert gets really nervous, he feels like he's gonna throw up, and he'll say it. He'll say, you know, "I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna throw up," and he'll feel really sick. He won't actually do it, but he feels like he's going to. So while he was in this ABA, it's a very intense program, and he was getting nervous at something that was happening, and he said to the teacher, "I'm gonna throw up." She goes, "If you throw up, you're gonna get on your hands and knees and clean the floor." She had no idea that he was actually just really nervous and he didn't know how to express that feeling. So her horrible reaction towards it just really shows a lot about people. The people who are even working with these children aren't realizing these certain cues, and it's pretty crazy to think about.
Like, it never bothered me like the situation I was in, but the fact that people were so ignorant and just mean and horrible, that bothered me.
I've done a lot of volunteer work with a huge variety of special education students, and there's different ways that each student should be handled. Certain kids need to be comforted while other children need to be disciplined, and there's ways to go about that. For example, I had one student that I worked with, and he was a nonverbal student. He was in a nonverbal classroom, and he would get disciplined for speaking. If you are nonverbal and you're trying to learn this language and you're trying to speak, even though it's not coming out perfectly, that should be encouraged, not discouraged. So whenever he did that, the teacher would turn him around and face him to the back of the classroom, and he would have to sit and stare at the wall while everyone else does a shake break, it was called, and everyone would jump up and dance to get their, jiggle wiggles out. And he was being discouraged to speak. Meanwhile, that is something that should be encouraged.
Well, I don't think the struggle is so much dealing with autism. The struggle is more with the way people react to it.
A lot of people, like myself in the past, don't know about it, so they don't know why they're acting like that, and being around that could make them nervous. So it's just all about awareness, being aware of what autism is, why people are acting that way, what specifically causes those reactions. And that will raise a lot of awareness and people will understand what exactly is happening.
She's come so far. I think that's amazing, and I think she can go as far as she wants. I can't say that she'll never have kids or never have a husband, and that she'll never, get a job, whatever, be able to go to college or finish high school. I think you just gotta see what happens and go from there. Because I think the possibilities are endless as to what she can do.